Testing, testing. Just give it a minute, see if anyone shows up. All right, I guess we'll go and get started then, or just as people are joining on the chat. Hey Anita, nice to see you again. So today we'll be looking at another Disney animated film that some would argue is underrated, and personally, well, I don't know if I'd call it underrated. It is a movie I do kind of have a soft spot for, and that is Oliver and Company, from 1988. Because I used to have the VHS for this film, and actually I think I still do. Um, and it's just one of those movies I used to watch all the time as a kid, even though apparently nowadays people label this as one of the weaker films in the Disney animation library. Is that still the case? Well, I guess it's one way to find out. So if anyone's ready, you have your own copy of the film, or you're on Disney Plus, or however you're watching this. Yes, this also marks the last film in Disney's Dark Age, which, yeah, we're pretty much about to end an era. So let me go ahead and get this booted up. All right, everyone ready? Ready, spaghetti. 3, 2, 1, play. Okay. All right. Yeah, interesting. This film was released the same year/day that Don Bluth's Land for Time came out, which probably explains why Dom DeLuise wasn't in Land for Time, because he was in this movie, considering he was in the other 3 films of the 80s that Don Bluth made. So Oliver and Company. You know, interesting enough, when I was a kid, I used to have an orange cat that I named Oliver because of this movie. I guess it shows you how much I liked this film as a kid. Kittens Need Home for $5. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. This portion I find hard to believe. You mean to tell me no one wanted Oliver? No one wanted a cute little orange, like, tabby kitten? Like, really? Like, come on, people. Yeah, I'm aware Dom DeLuise was in a lot of Don Bluth's films. I'm just saying that of the 4 films he released during the 80s, The Lamb for Time was the only one he didn't do. He was in Secret Nim, American Side, and All Dogs to Heaven, and of course, in the 90s he'd be in Children's Central Park, which, yeah, poor Oliver. Again, seriously, no one wanted to adopt Oliver. Like, really? Do people have a prejudice against orange tabbies? Yeah, New York City seems to be a popular location for a lot of animated films. Now I look back between this movie and We're Back in Dinosaur Story from the '90s. I mean, it's a little kitten. I don't know. Maybe it just reminds me of back a few years ago when I saved one of my cats from at Kroger, but someone just abandoned him, or her. Actually, it's a female. Yeah, Secret Life of Pets. Never saw the movie because it never interested me. Although I guess if I ever do watch lots of Illumination films, I'll probably have to check it out. Yeah, I know you already said this is Disney's 27th film. Yeah, Oliver, not exactly the best place to sleep on. Yeah, much like The Great Mouse Detective, this is another Disney animated film from the '80s that not that people, I guess, heard of or recall. But then again, the film wasn't exactly the biggest hit when it came out, I guess. Yeah, that was Hugh Lewis doing the singing for. Yeah, it's interesting some of the names they got for this film. Hugh Lewis, and then you got Billy Joel, who voices Dodger and sings the probably the most iconic song in this movie. Like his work on Back to the Future. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this was the late '80s, and this is close to when the '90s came out, and when they were trying to be a little more hip with the youth, I guess. Maybe not to the same extent as some other later Disney works like Goof Troop and then the Goofy movies, but and I wouldn't call the ending of this movie a dance. I mean, party. It's more just Chicken Little, Home on the Range. Yeah, of course, Enter Dodger. Yeah, we'll be getting to Chicken Little, Home on the Range later, but does that imply that you've eaten cats before, Dodger? Yeah, voiced by Billy Joel. I guess I should probably mention too. I never read the original Charles Dickens novel Oliver Twist that this movie is clearly meant to be based on. Took inspiration of the Tramp. I guess you could say that. Clearly, clearly is not a cat person. Disney really did love making dog and cat movies, didn't they? Between Lane and the Tramp, 100 Dalmatians, The Aristocats, The Fox and the Hound. And of course, we get the most iconic song in the movie. Which, yeah, if there's one thing anyone remembers from this film, it is this song. Yeah, I know. That's what I was just saying. The movie's based on the original story. I mean, there's a reason that this is probably the most popular song they used in the Disney Sing-Along VHS tapes. Sunglasses for $7. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's not that. Maybe that's not crazy. Yeah, I remember. It reminds me of something that Doug Walker said when he did his Disney Sember on this movie. I think he admitted that he felt like The Lamp of Time felt more like a classic Disney film than this movie did. At least that's how he worded it. Wonder if this would make the New York City news. Dogs hold up traffic to have like a jam. Yeah, no, I saw. Yeah, I saw the cameos from Lady and the Tramp and Home on Dalmatians in that. Which I mean, I know it can't be them because wrong time period, but it's a funny little. It's probably their descendants. Well, we meet the rest of the dogs. Originally, Oliver have his parents in the opening. Interesting. To use modern thunder and lightning sound effects. That's neat. Wow, Tito is just like a real Chihuahua. How bad tempered they are. Just feisty. Yeah, this one does use some CGI. Yeah, I remember they appeared in the Once Upon a Studio. Yeah, I think Rita Consent's Dodger is kind of full of crap. Yeah, you mentioned that Oliver Company and Lamport Time open the same day. But if I ever saw Oliver or any of the Oliver adaptations, I probably would get some of the references this movie makes. And they go into a fight. Andreas Deja and Mike Gabriel. Yeah. And we have Fagin, voiced by Dom DeLuise. Yeah, I know. I realized that Tita's voice was the same actor who would later voice Bonze from The Lion King. Oh dear. Roscoe and DeSoto. Yeah, enter our villain of the movie, Bill Sykes, who I have to agree with Jamboree might be up there as one of Disney's darkest villains, mainly because he's probably the most realistic villain that Disney has given us, and probably the most serious, considering that there's just nothing comedic about him. It's just the kind of people that he represents do exist. Francis before Mr. Arrow. Yeah, I kind of recognize that was Arrow's voice. There goes all those items. And there goes the mirror of his car. Burn, Francis. Yeah, like Sykes feels less like a Disney villain and more like a villain you'd see in like a Martin Scorsese movie or an episode of 24. Yeah, you just broke their television. Great. Yeah, I know you already mentioned those list of villains. I'm just well, Oliver had some guts there. That's a pretty nasty scar on your nose, DeSoto. kind of makes you wonder. Kind of makes you wonder what Fagin like. How much money does Fagin owe Sykes, and what did he do to get himself in this situation? Yeah, funny how yeah, Sykes from Shark Tale, they're both greedy like businessmen, I guess, that the like the character owes money to them. Yeah, this movie does have a few dark moments. Maybe not as dark as Hunchback or Black Cauldron, but still. Yeah, Dinosaur I guess has its dark moments too, but that's to expect it with a movie about dinosaurs trying to survive. I guess Brother Bear, maybe. That's pretty long. Consider this movie came out in '88, and that his death is in 2022. So yeah, yeah. I guess Oliver feels like he's accepted. Even though these probably aren't the best people he should be with, considering they're thieves. But you know, and our next song of the film, Coca Cola. Is this the first Disney animated film that has product placement? Now that I think about it, because you see the Coca Cola logo in the background. This song's kind of catchy too. Okay, with those movies, they just blunt you over the head with product placement. All right. At least with this movie, it's kept in the background. You just mentioned Source Up too. Yeah, we meet our child character of the movie. Not really the biggest fan of Coke. I'm more of a Sprite person. KFC. I haven't had KFC in a long time, mostly because I don't know. It's just something I'm not that crazy of. Yep, Jenny. Francis, the overdramatic actor. Of course, it's still daylight. It's gonna be daylight for several hours. Tito, just how Tito's still alive after this, I don't know. Hmm. Betty Midler as Georgette. Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen Fantasia 2000, so at, at least Oliver found someone who willing to take him in. Like a proper family and home. And Georgette, a dog they clearly spoil way too much. Richard Mulligan before his death in 2000. Hmm. Oh, great. She thinks she's a Disney princess. She has her own birds. Yeah, I guess it has been a few years. I mean, unless you count Fox and the Hound, it does have a few music numbers, but yeah, Georgette is in quite the surprise. The release on vinyl until 2013's Frozen. Hmm. Yeah, I've seen your comments. Like I was just saying, you could argue Fox and the Hound's kind of a musical, but maybe not to the same extent as Jungle Book or Winnie the Pooh. But interesting inspiration. I guess that's another thing this movie has in common with The Lion King. Dumbo, How Dalmatians, The Rescuers. Yeah, some of these movies do have a thing for being released in whatever year that the film itself came out. You guys only knew Oliver for like less than a day, so yeah, it makes sense that this kid's brother would star in like Disney Channel projects. Matthew Lawrence became the voice of Disney's David Kiesel. Oh, that's cool to know. Hmm. Central Park. Yeah, yeah, I know. I saw. But I'm assuming maybe the descendants of Pongo and Jacques, Trusty. Yeah, yeah. I think I've heard of that. The Ratican. You could see a photo of it in George's collection, which that raises some concerning questions right there. Oliver, 1125 Fifth Avenue. At least Oliver finally found a home. Yeah, it's surprising Disney didn't use Dom DeLuise more in their films. I mean, yeah, I guess he does voice yeah, Dionysus in the. Yeah, I do remember he does voice that character in the Hercules TV show. That looks like a comfortable bed she's sleeping in. It's a cute little song. It's not probably not one of the more memorable songs of the movie, but it's cute and wholesome for what it is. Who knew the butler likes wrestling? I remember it was you. Again, another reason why this film is kind of the end of an era. Frank Welker. Nah, Jeffrey Katzenberg. Yeah, it makes sense that around this time after this film is when they start trying to release a film every year, or at least they try to. Disney duty commercial spinning around by Jump 5. Okay, then. Tito, as a way for the ladies. Hmm. Yeah, I remember Fagin has a watch that has Mickey Mouse on it, but yeah, Oliver has a pretty tough decision here. But yeah, he is better off with Jenny. I mean, it is a home that where they can afford to keep him. I would say this is their final film before the Renaissance officially begins. Well, it's between this Great Mouse Detective and especially Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I guess had a play in helping Disney get out of the slump they were in, so they could start this Renaissance. This film was released exactly on the same day as Mickey Mouse's 60th birthday. Fagin, I get you're desperate for money, but man, you're trying to have a workout, Georgia, while eating chocolate. That sounds a little. That seems a little contradictory. Yeah, Roger Rabbit came out the same year as this film. Didn't think this through, did you, Georgette? Ah, boy, Fagin, don't be so certain of yourself. Yeah, I know the film got mixed reviews when it came out, but nowadays people do see it as kind of an underrated classic. Yeah, I do feel bad for Fagin. I mean, what he's doing is wrong, but again, when people are this desperate, they'll do anything. Fagin broke the mirror again. Yeah, I seen her comment. All right, just Georgia is really out of her element. Yeah, it's not a good place for you to be here, girl, because there's shady people that live in this area. Yes, it is the Mickey Mouse watch. Yeah, I know about that with Tito. Sure thing, Dodger. Yeah, did you ever consider that possibility, Fagin, that the kitten belongs to a little girl? I could have danced all night, Fair Lady. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen My Fair Lady. Jeez, Fagin. Yeah, I've noticed quite a few CGI. Like when Georgia was going down the stairs, that was close CGI, and that's one way to save your hide, Fagin. Include real world advertised products. Yeah. So now it's off to save Jenny from this mad loan shark. Well, The Rescuers would get its own sequel shortly after this movie. Yeah, there does seem to be a lot of kidnapping in Disney films. It seems a common trend back then, anyway. Not so much nowadays, because don't want to scare the kids. Yep, the Disney Renaissance would be very popular with most of their films being musicals. I think The Rescuers Down Under was the only one that wasn't a musical. Yeah, well, Dinosaur's not part of the Disney Renaissance, so Tito City in Ohio. That implies that the movie Snow White exists in this universe. Sykes, what makes you think she would close the door since she's tied up? Fagin to the rescue. Yeah, I know Dinosaurs is part of the post Renaissance, but I was talking about movies in the Renaissance that just, you know. And then we get this chase scene. Sykes is really just insane. Just going through the subway like this. Yep, Dodger to the rescue. Yeah, Roscoe DeSoto get a pretty brutal death scene. They get electrocuted on the train tracks. Yes, I've seen her comments, all right? Yeah, but the train's coming. And we get probably one of the most brutal death scenes of any Disney villain. Like, right up there with. It's definitely between him and Clayton. I mean, it's. Sheesh. Oh, hey, Drew. You're a little late to the party, but yeah. Seriously, talk about a brutal death scene. He gets hit by a train and then falls off the Brooklyn Bridge. It's. Yeah, I think Georgia has enough adventure for one day. Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Kasper invited the animators to pitch potential ideas for upcoming animated features. That's nice. Some gifts, but they don't really have much to give you. Shirley Ralph voiced Rita before the Proud Family. Run, Tito, run. First Disney butler. Of course, we get a reprise of this iconic song. Directed by George Scribner. So yeah, that was Oliver and Company. And well, I wouldn't say it's like one of their all-time best. For what it is, it's a decent little film. Um, yeah, a little dance ending. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say it's as bad as some people make it out to be, but overall, it's a cute little film that has some heart, some humor, some decent songs, and definitely a dark villain that I think is pretty underrated, inspired by Charles Dickens' Oliver Twist. Yeah, inspired keyword. Um, but yeah, overall, I still like this film. It's not like one of my all time favorites, but it's a movie I do have a soft spot for. So yeah, um, yeah, I enjoyed this, and with that, we can close this chapter of the Disney Animation Studios with their dark ages of the 70s and 80s. And overall, looking back, I'd say, with the exception of like the Black Cauldron, I'd say a lot of the classics from this era I do think are a bit underrated. Or at least they're films that don't seem to get as much attention as their golden age or their obviously the Renaissance age. Like because I mean it's good that some of them, like the Great Mouse Detective, Robin Hood, are getting more attention nowadays, and people are acknowledging that they are underrated gems that deserve much more love. But consider we've ended this era, that means next time we'll finally be entering the Disney Renaissance, what everyone calls peak Disney, Disney at their highest and their best. So, but that will be next time. So, again, I hope you all enjoyed this watch on, and I guess I will see y'all in the next one. So, see y'all then.